Hey, this is Ryan from Rocket SaaS, and you're listening to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast, the show that gives you actionable marketing strategies and campaign ideas to rocket your SaaS business. And if you want even more SaaS marketing ideas, go to saasmarketingweekly.com to join my free newsletter. Hello and welcome to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. Today we have a very special guest, Matt Barker. You may recognize the name, you may recognize the face if you're watching this on YouTube. One of the fastest growing LinkedIn accounts that I've ever seen. I think, Matt, you're at about 169,000 followers. Is that about right? I think you're about there, aren't you? And you've had an amazing growth.
Yeah, it's about 169,000 now, which is pretty mad.
Yeah, so I remember following you when you had a fraction of that, and then it just went whoop. And can you put it down to a few things that you did that really made your LinkedIn growth really accelerate?
So at the start, it was like super hard. I was starting completely from zero, had no network on LinkedIn, like a lot of people, just using it just as a place to update my job experience and stuff like that. But yeah, I started kind of learning about like what the benefits of kind of posting and that kind of stuff, which was completely foreign to me. Got posting and sort of, enjoyed the writing process ish, and just started learning a lot about, if just getting your name out there through posting, DMing people, connecting with people, all these kind of, you hear a lot of kind of standard advice on LinkedIn about how to use LinkedIn, but it's that advice because it does kind of work. And I was in a fortunate position early on where I was able to put a lot of hours in and just kind of accelerate it really quickly because it was the main focus for me at the time.
So is it like, do you recommend posting once per day, commenting a certain amount of times on other people's posts? Do you have like, did you have, or do you have like a routine of things that you always try and go through like every day or every week?
When I was really trying to get my account off the ground, I was posting every day, sometimes even twice a day if I had enough ideas and kind of was in a bit of a groove with writing my content. I would be looking to connect with new people every day. So 10, 20 new connection requests every day. I'd be sending those connection requests to people who are, active on the platform, creating content, fit my kind of target audience, who are the kind of people I'd want to work with or the kind of people I'd want engaging on my content. I'd be commenting on people's posts as well because, when you comment on someone's posts, it gives you a lot of visibility as well. So it enables you to kind of build relationships with people through comments and you kind of get to know people that way. So yeah, I was posting, connecting with people, commenting, and then I'd just make a point to kind of DM people that either engaged with my content, new people who I'd connected with. So I kind of just saw it as this kind of, well, LinkedIn tried to push it as a professional networking platform, and that is kind of what it is. It's, for me, as someone who I'm naturally not that great at like in-person stuff. So being able to do that, but online was like a really easy kind of thing for me to commit to,
Yeah. I know you talk about, you kind of describe it as professional and personal growth on LinkedIn as opposed to like personal branding that a lot of people describe it as. So what do you kind of mean by that professional and personal growth on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So the reason I kind of go for that versus personal branding is I think there's actually a lot of people out there who actually don't know what personal branding is. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not a personal branding expert. And that's kind of part of the reason why I don't kind of tend to go down that. And I think there's a lot of people who are talking about personal branding who just don't understand it fully. And there's very little experts who really do. So for me, my experience of the last 3 years of helping clients grow and helping my own profile grow, there's a lot of people out there that just don't really fully understand what personal branding is. And there's a lot of people claiming to be experts on that. I'm definitely not an expert on that. And I've never claimed to be. And the reason I don't go down, talk about kind of personal branding is because of that. So my experience of growing my own profile and my clients' profiles, it more represents to me personal and professional growth. It, like growing as a person, accelerating your own personal development, because writing online and writing on LinkedIn, it has this whole kind of like character growth as well. Like I'm a lot more confident in myself. Like if you told me 5 years ago I'd be going on podcasts and talking and on like topics like this, that just wouldn't have been me at the time. So there's like a confidence thing. There's a character development part of it. And then there's the professional part of it, which just so happens to your career growth can accelerate by posting on LinkedIn and building your network out. That's my kind of way of seeing it.
That's a great point. I never actually thought about that. I never actually thought about how creating content on LinkedIn, whether it's just even written posts or posting photos and videos and doing things like podcasts, that is a real kind of life skill to give you confidence. No, I never really thought of it like that. So I got married a few years ago and I did my speech, and I'm sure it wouldn't have been very good if it wasn't for my LinkedIn content and videos that I've been doing. So yeah, it certainly has knock-on effects to life, and yeah, it just gives you more confidence, helps you meet people. So no, I like that. And I know you do post a lot about, I know you live in Cyprus and you post some amazing photos of you enjoying yourself. And I know that those sorts of posts, they do get a lot of engagement. Some people hate them. I'm sure you've had a few trolls. I don't care about you having a beer on the beach. This is LinkedIn. You shouldn't be doing that. But that type of content really does seem to get rewarded. And I know LinkedIn is, a lot of people are saying, oh, LinkedIn is trying to be more like Instagram and it's trying to push those things. But I don't think that's a bad thing. The worst thing about LinkedIn is it's so salesy. And there's just so many people just promote their products and promote themselves. And I scroll through it sometimes and it's just so boring and everyone's got the same complaint. And then you get people like you and just creating a bit more kind of natural content. It is like thought leadership and it's helpful and you're learning things. But you're also experiencing kind of what other professionals are doing with their lives. And you kind of leaned into that. And that must be one of the biggest reasons of your growth. And I presume you encourage your clients to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely played a part of it. The way I've kind of always viewed a content strategy as a whole is like you want to communicate who you are, what your expertise is, and the actual service that you provide. If you go all in on one of those, you're missing two key elements out. So when I started posting on LinkedIn, there was a lot of creators who were kind of, in their early 20s, probably even late teens and that kind of age group, who were really just posting just selfies, pictures, just all the time, constantly. And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't think that's the way to do this, because you're going way too broad and you're not focusing on the right thing. You're just attracting people who just like the way you look, that's not the right way to do it. I'm sure anyone could understand that. So there's those kind of three elements of it I just mentioned. So yeah, that's one part of it, posting content that shows a bit behind of like what the person is behind the content, behind the writing, behind the profile. That's why you see a lot of people posting video content now as well. Just enables the person behind the screen, the target audience, to essentially build this relationship with a complete stranger just through a screen. It's why, I'm sure you've got on conversations before with complete strangers where they're like, oh yeah, I saw you went to so-and-so and did this and did that. It just enables you to build this kind of more intimate relationship with the person who's reading your content. It has an impact on growth, but the way LinkedIn and its algorithm changes, it's a social media platform. These things trend up and down. What was popular in sort of 22, 23 was these kind of story posts, and they would really explode if you got them right. But now they're not so kind of explosive with their growth. Now it's more like the platform is rewarding like expert insights, real in-depth expert content from what appears to be the expert on that topic. That doesn't mean to say that personal content isn't a part of it. It still is, because you're still trying to get those three key elements across. So it's kind of, riding these kind of trends that come and go and just understanding when the time is to capitalize on that, but also just respecting that there's like a strategy to go to.
Yeah. So what you're saying, that the kind of trend at the moment is like deep dive expert content. Is there a particular format? Is it like video, or I know infographics sometimes do really well? What are you seeing that works at the moment?
There's lots of different findings. So like one of the great things about kind of the point that I've got to with my following and the way I've always approached content is I've always liked volume. I've always liked just posting, 2 times a day, 3 times a day if you can, and just posting things that it might be something that you actually might not think will work, but you just want to test it just to find out. So over the last 3 or 4 months, as everyone's been complaining about reach dying and the whole LinkedIn's going down the drain and all this kind of stuff, I've been just testing all these different things, trying to absorb as many kind of different formats and different ways people are creating content and just testing it myself. So there's a few things that have been working for me. I know video is a popular one. For me, I'm not a huge video guy. I'm not going to go to the lengths of getting an editor and all these kind of stuff. But I did test out one video, which was a 15-minute video, just me showing you through a certain process of me creating content. On the face of it, it seems pretty boring and kind of slow, but it just got a lot of impressions for the level of engagement that it got. So that's something that definitely was this kind of signal that it works. These kind of step-by-step guides in the form of a PDF document that you'd see, people call them carousels. That has always worked for me since 2022. That's been consistent. So every time I put those out, if it's a step-by-step educational guide, just this is how I get an outcome. Here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Real simple step-by-step process. Anytime I post any of them, I always get a spike in followers, spike in impressions. So that's a content format that I can bank on. And then even more recently, there's been this kind of trend of this kind of weird LinkedIn. So it's people being a bit more kind of conversational, a bit more left field, a bit more kind of kooky, a bit more weird, and a bit more kind of not necessarily professional. And that is just standing out. And I think people at the moment, I think it's more of a kind of macro factor, kind of an external impact of what the world is like now is actually impacting what people want to read and how they want to read it. And this kind of imperfect, kind of a bit strange content, just text only, short post, that can work really well these days. And I actually just started working with a client just a week or 2 ago, and they were struggling with their reach, and they're real expert. They know their stuff in their industry. They're a CEO, they run their company, and they were struggling with their reach. They post every day, expert content, but when we kind of looked at what they were posting, there just wasn't enough. I couldn't see what the person was behind the content. And like I said earlier, you need to have those kind of 3 elements of this is how we can help you as a client. This is my expertise, but then they were missing that kind of personal side of it. So we started getting them to write more of this kind of personal content, day in the life sort of stuff. And literally in the space of a week, it just made a massive impact. They had more impressions in a day than they had in the last 3 months.
Nice. So in that example, you got to mix up their content a little bit, not just talk 100% about what they do. It's more bringing that human side to it. So what more talking about if they're CEO, challenges of running the business kind of thing, or?
We were talking about it on a call, and we were trying to identify, what's your identity? The identity I try and always go to with clients is what are you professionally? Would you call yourself an entrepreneur, a CEO, a marketer, a designer, for example? What's that? But then kind of combine it with something else. So for example, in this case, he's an entrepreneur or he's a CEO, but he's also a dad of 2 kids, 2 very young kids. And that plays a big part in his life. His day starts at 5 a.m. and it's hectic. And then as soon as he starts his work day, it's almost it's a relief, but then he's also hectic. And so it was kind of this dad CEO, dadpreneur sort of combination thing, because it brings in other CEOs, other entrepreneurs, but also family people who understand the kind of challenges of juggling both. So it gives him this new angle to go at that makes him just come across a lot more human.
Yeah, you can get a lot of engagement like that. You get a lot of support and compassion, and yeah, that happened to me too, which you don't often get so much when you're just always talking about business.
Yeah.
People often think if they comment on a business post, their salesperson's going to ring me up.
I think so, yeah. But like I say, you need all 3 of these elements, just kind of make it all work. And
I like that kind of analogy. So the personal stuff can just really give you those boosts of engagement. It may not bring in leads, so that's why a lot of people don't do it. They're like, oh, I'm not going to post a photo of me on my holiday with my kids, not going to bring any leads, is it? But it can give you that boost of engagement and awareness and followers. So when you do start posting about calls to action, then obviously, you're in the right place. So I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So do you work with clients that like we're really starting from ground zero, like they've hardly got they never hardly post on LinkedIn, they work with you for the first time, and you help them really get off the ground?
They're both. So there's two ways that I work with people at the moment. I have a community, or I hate the word community because it's kind of been a bit done to death, but let's say a group of people who come in, they get access to all these resources to help them kind of write better content, start writing faster, network with all the people inside. I think at this point of recording, there's like 70 people in there, and we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to grow our LinkedIn profile. So that kind of scenario is where I'm working with people mainly to kind of get them from 0 to 1, or even from kind of 1 to like 5. So they've either just started or they're really early in their kind of LinkedIn profile. So that kind of scenario is good for people because you can network really quickly. You can get the resources you need to just get writing quickly, get ideas to write, and kind of skip that really awful kind of start bit where you just don't know what you're doing. So you can kind of accelerate that start bit. And then when I work one-to-one with people, which is more of like a kind of consulting, coaching hybrid, I guess, these are the people that have generally been doing it for a few months or up to a year. They've been doing it it's starting to become a bit of a time suck. It's not really working how they want it to work. And they just want to get the results they want out of it. And that's when they hire me to come in and, we co-create content, help with their strategy, give them ongoing support just to kind of give them that kind of accountability and feedback and actually help them improve.
Yeah. Okay. And you have a playbook, don't you? You have a free LinkedIn playbook.
Yeah. So that's something. So you could call it a lead magnet, I guess. But it's essentially a series of like 5 chapters. It's 30 pages, and it's me writing about how I've grown my account, mistakes I've made along the way, certain formats that have really worked for me to create that kind of explosive growth, and some other stuff in there. And even though it's 30 pages, I would call it a concise book. People, it's an afternoon read it in sort of 20, 30 minutes. And it gives you get some golden nuggets and kind of aha moments to sort of get you on your way to.
Well, there's some frameworks in there that you can use, like sort of templates of like posts that you can make.
There's 2 really important ones, because one of them is what we just touched on, where I was, the kind of carousel posts, the step-by-step guides. That's been like a really key growth, a very impactful piece of growth content for me. So I break down that whole process around how I do that and how I do it without sucking all the time out of your day. Because these kind of bigger pieces of content can often take like up to 10 hours to create. But the way I do it, it takes about an hour or 2 maximum. But it has a really big impact. So that's a really important part that I share inside it. And I also share some kind of DM strategies to help you network a bit easier, because a lot of people really struggle with networking.
So where did you find that? mattbarker.kit.com? Is that the website?
The best place to go would be to just go onto my LinkedIn profile, and then right at the top, there's a blue button which says how to build a LinkedIn audience, and click on that, and then you can download it for free.
Nice. Awesome. And are you taking on clients at the moment?
Right now, as I'm talking, I have 2 spots free. I only work with 5 people at a time, one-to-one, but my group where I'm helping people with all the resources and everything, that's called Copy Builders. That's open for anyone to join it. Doors open and close once a month, so you'd have to kind of keep an eye out on when that's open.
Nice. Okay. So we find that on your LinkedIn profile as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So Matt Barker, if you don't know him already, then you obviously don't use LinkedIn very much. Everyone seems to know Matt on LinkedIn. So go onto his profile, find the playbook. I'm going to download it after this call. Hopefully learn some nuggets. I've already learned some interesting things today. I think I'm going to post more personal stuff. That's need to be a bit more brave, get out there a bit more, rather than constant business stuff. But no, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you've taught the SaaS Marketing Weekly audience some interesting stuff on how to grow their personal brand. It certainly helped me scale my business. When people ask me like, what's been the number one factor of growth and lead gen for my agency, I probably would say LinkedIn personal branding is probably the number one factor. And then demand generation, which LinkedIn does play a very key role in that. So yeah, I would recommend to anybody that is obviously wanting to grow their business or enhance their career as a marketer, then yeah, being active on LinkedIn will just get you to the front of the queue of any like job application. So like we're hiring marketers all the time. And when we put a job out for like a marketing manager or marketing exec, we get about 500 to 1,000 job applicants come in. We always look at their LinkedIn. If anyone's got like a decent number of followers, they post a lot of content, then they just skip right to the front of the queue. So I'm like, this person puts themselves out there. They're good at marketing themselves. So it just makes them stand out as opposed to this like sea of CVs. So it's great to either grow your career in marketing or to scale your business. So yeah, anyone that listens to this pod, the more LinkedIn content, the better. And hopefully Matt's content can help too. Thanks so much for coming to the pod. And hopefully we'll get you back one day soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Nice to meet you and have a chat.
Cheers, Matt.
Cheers.